And now we bring in John of Locked On Rangers for a nice crossover edition. We don't get to do this very often just because our teams don't play very much. John, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Rangers off to a pretty solid start this season, 3-1 to begin the year, and it hasn't been perfect. There's a couple of things you could maybe nitpick, but for the most part, I think they're off to a heck of a start, especially when it comes to their ability to put the puck in the net. They've really been scoring at a very high clip so far. How about you, JD? I know the Sharks are off to a bit of a rough start here, so.
Oh, rough does not begin to start. Yeah, the Sharks are off to the franchise worst start at 0-5, and they have scored 8 goals so far in their 5 games. So they have struggled to score. It has been a comedy of errors, especially in the second period. So we will kind of get to that. But you mentioned, pretty solid start. I know the Rangers last year, pretty deep playoff run. Does it look like they're kind of picking up where they left off?
I think so. I mean, they lost a couple of people in free agency. I mean, everybody that they brought in as a rental, from Andrew Kopp to Tyler Mott to Frank Vetrano, all those guys walked in free agency, and they indeed did turn out to be rentals. But, the guys they've brought back have done a great job. Panarin and Mika, you don't really worry about those guys. They're going to score numbers and put up points at a very high clip. But, the kid line from last season, Hertl, Lafreniere, and Kakko, those three had a lot of buzz in the playoffs. And they're actually right now playing on 3 different lines, but they've pretty much picked up right where they left off. And, they're all off to strong starts this season. And Vincent Trocheck, he's in a weird way, and I talked about this in our last episode, he's almost kind of been overshadowed. Like, for some reason, it feels like not a lot of Ranger fans are talking about him, but he's got 5 points in his first 4 games. He's out there on the power play. He's out there on the penalty kill. Does really a little bit of everything. And, dominating on the faceoff circle like he typically does. So, yeah, man, so far so good. I mean, again, it hasn't been perfect. There have been a couple of defensive lapses against both the Wild and the Ducks. And, the Rangers, they're going to have to look to clean that up because they typically are a pretty good defensive, team. But that's probably been the one Achilles heel. It's just a little shaky, couple lapses here and there.
Yeah, for the Sharks, it's been a lot of the stars not really kind of producing right now. Timo Meier and Tomas Hertl are probably the most well-known Sharks. Have a combined 2 points on the season. Erik Karlsson has a goal and an assist, but this team, these kind of big name guys have just not been able to get much scoring going. It's actually been their bottom 6 guys who have produced a lot of scores. Nico Sturm and Evgeny Svechnikov have 2 goals and lead the team right now so far in the season. But it's been a tough go for the Sharks to try to produce any sort of offense, and you can only ask the defense to bend and not break so many times before they just finally give in.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Meier and Hertl, and I would probably throw Couture in there as the kind of the big 3 on the Sharks. Even if you're a fan of the Rangers and, these two teams don't cross paths very often, those are the 3 guys that you're familiar with, probably along with Karlsson. But, I mean, between Meier, Hertl, and Couture, I saw a stat that really surprised me. I mean, I guess it's not that surprising because the Sharks have, kind of stumbled out of the starting blocks here. But, I mean, 4 points in 5 games. And, this is a team in the Sharks that I don't think expectations were that high to begin with. So for me, I mean, that means that, the guys that are typically the best players, I mean, they need to really shoulder the load, and they just haven't been able to do that so far. I mean, is there any reason that that's the case? Anything you can kind of point to there or anything like that?
The team, they did have weird starts starting in Prague, and then it was like back to back, and then you had a week off, and then you're kind of really getting going into the season right now. But I don't think Timo Meier is 100% healthy. He got injured in practice after the Prague game. It was kind of a game time decision going into last weekend's games, and he played, but he just doesn't look quite himself. He's hit like 3 or 4 posts so far, so he's probably due at this point to just some bad puck luck. And they've been trying to kind of mix up these lines and trying to find a good balance of, do they want to stack it with Hertl and Timo? Do they want to try to spread them out? And nothing's really kind of clicked yet so far in the season. It's been a lot of line shuffling, and there hasn't been much chemistry established already.
Yeah, I got you. I mean, are there any bright spots or anybody that's kind of surprised? I mean, I know it's a challenging start, but is there anything that you can kind of just salvage from these first 5 games here and say, okay, there's 1 or 2 good things that are going on right now?
James Reimer's been playing out of his mind.
Okay.
If you look at the numbers, they're not that great. He's I think he gave up 4 goals last game against the Islanders, but I mean, they gave up 45 shots to the Islanders, and if you're giving up 45 shots to the Islanders, that's usually that's not a good thing to begin with. But James Reimer's been playing out of his mind, and like I said, with Nico Sturman, Evgeny Svechkov, who they signed in free agency, really have solidified this fourth line, and we'll get to the lines here in a second, but really have provided some stability for this fourth line that's been a revolving door of AHL guys or just guys who aren't ready to be NHL players. So,
yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. JD, do you want to, shall we let everybody know about BetOnline?
Yes, let us do that. Our good friends over at BetOnline. If you guys know, BetOnline, your number one betting football and source, and also with the start of basketball season here. So you can find out the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continuous source for your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check out your favorite games and events, including MLB playoffs, you got MMA, boxing, golf. Like we said, we have basketball back in full swing now. So head to their website today or you use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so let's get into some of the projected lines. So, John, you want to start first with how the Rangers last lined up, or what your expectations for this game?
Yeah, I think it could be a little bit different from the last game just because, Ryan Carpenter's going to be coming back. He'll probably be on the fourth line. But to kind of just take it from the top, you're going to go with a top line of Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, and Kaapo Kakko, and they have been awesome to start the season. Mika he's coming off of a 4-point game. I want to say 2 goals and 2 assists in the last one. Him and Vincent Trocheck assisted each other on 2 different power plays for goals. So that was awesome. And, Kaapo Kakko, somebody who really kind of came alive in the playoffs last year as part of that kid line. He is really benefiting, it would seem, from playing with Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad. And, coming into the season, I was really hoping that both Kakko and Lafreniere would get top 6 roles. At first, it seemed like they wanted to keep the 2 of them together with Philip Hedl on the third line. But, injuries and overall just ineffectiveness have kind of forced them to, recalibrate on the fly here. And so now you've got Kakko on the top line. Alexis Lafreniere now on the second line. He's out there with Trocheck and Panarin, which is a phenomenal opportunity for him. I mean, Artemi Panarin can take people like, Jesper Foss and Colin Blackwell and even Dryden Hunt a little bit last year and turn them into semi-relevant offensive players. So, I mean, for him to get Alexis Lafreniere out there, I mean, I just can't even imagine how much good he's going to be able to do for him this season. But then you've got Philip Hedl. He's still on the third line. And I believe it's going to be Blais on the third line and then Goodrow also on the third line.
Yes.
Goodrow,
old friend,
yeah.
Barclay Goodrow. Yes.
The Game 7 winner there, right? Against the Knights, he knocked them out, right?
Yes.
I've gone back on YouTube and watched that a couple of times because, I kept swearing like during the playoff run this last year, he was going to come up with like a major goal at some point. But, man, just a hard-nosed player, and I'm glad the Rangers have him. But then the fourth line, you're probably looking at Vesey, Carpenter, and Reeves. Dryden Hunt was placed on waivers a little bit earlier today. They kind of have to do that because they want to go with 22 players and accrue some more cap space between now and the trade deadline. But, I think it's a good way to line up. It took some time, but I think they're starting to settle with their lines. And these current line combinations, they look pretty good to me. As far as the D pairings, I mean, it's been the same all season. You've got Fox and Lindgren, you've got Trouba and Miller, and you've got Schneider and Jones. Jones came out 1 game for Libor Hayek, but for the most part, those are going to be the 6 guys. And how about you, JD? I mean, how are the Sharks looking right now as far as the line combos go? And what are your thoughts on the way all the pieces sort of fit right now?
So last game, they split up the Hertl and Meier combo. Looks like they're putting them back together. So we'll have a first line of Timo Meier, Tomas Hertl, and Alexander Barabanov. So his second game back, missed the first 4 games of the season with an injury. Old friend Nick Bonito moving from 3C up to the second line wing to play with Couture and then Luke Cunnin. Bonito and Couture had some really nice chemistry at the end of last season when Bordeaux was playing 3C and they moved Bonito up to the second line with Couture. He scored 5 goals in like 8 games, so maybe they can kind of recapture some of that magic there. And then you have the Gadovich, Nico Sturm, and Genny Sveshnikov. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's going to be your third line. That's been the fourth line, but it looks like David Quinn's rewarding these guys because they've been probably the best line for the Sharks, which is kind of tells exactly how they've been. And then the fourth line here is going to be kind of cobbled together of Matt Nieto, Stephen Lawrence, and Oscar Lindblom, who was a healthy scratch last year. We'll see that leaves Noah Gregor and Kevin LeBanc as the healthy scratches right now. So we'll see if one of those guys comes in, but that's what it's looking like right now. For the D pairs, Jacob Mega and Erik Karlsson. Then they're still trying to figure out the second pairing between Scott Harrington, Matt Benning, and Mark Edward Vlasic. So pick two out of there and hold your nose. And then you have Mario Ferraro and Radim Shimmick as the bottom pair. So a gauntlet offensively there for the Rangers have to deal with.
No doubt about that. I do have to ask you, by the way, about David Quinn, because obviously, he's hired in the offseason. He had coached the Rangers for, I think, 3 years, and now he's with the Sharks, and we did a crossover then. How has it gone so far? I mean, what are your early impressions of him? Trying to kind of take the record out of the equation here. Just what are your impressions of him so far with this team?
There's some questionable zone starts. That's kind of been what I've really noticing. You have offensive players like Tomas Hertl and Timo Meier. And you would think you would try to get these guys as many kind of primo starts, right? You're a team that struggles with offense. Nick Bonino leads the offensive zone starts for this team. Like stuff like that where I question some of the usage of some of these guys where if you're trying to, I get it, you're trying to shelter your third line maybe, but you've been running a third line of Matt Nieto, Nick Bonino, and then your winger de jour, whoever's kind of in the doghouse, or Noah Gregors, or kind of guys like that. If you're going to be sheltering these guys, why not just play Thomas Bordeleau, who actually provides offense instead of Nick Bonino? So we'll see how it goes here with this. I'm curious if since they're struggling so much for offense, if we'll see the Hertl, Barabanov, Timo Meier line, which was very, very good for the Sharks at the end of last season. If they're going to get kind of those primo starts for a team that, like I said, has scored 8 goals in 5 games and has been struggling to get any consistent offense going.
Yeah, for sure. And, we were talking a little bit before we started recording here about how, it could be a David Quinn revenge game. You never know what can happen here. But, a thought that I had, before we even started recording here, though, is, Quinn, I'm sure he would love to win this game. I mean, for starters, they're 0-5. He wants to get his first win as the Sharks head coach. He was fired by the New York Rangers a couple of years ago. He's going back to Madison Square Garden, playing his old team. And, I think it's going to be pretty telling for the Sharks, how they show up for this game on Thursday night. Because if they go out there and they play their tails off, even if they don't win, if they're at least competitive, I think that'll at least tell you that, okay, they're following this coach, that they want to do well for him, et cetera, et cetera. But if they come out and they just lay an egg and they drop to 0-6 against this guy's old team, I mean, that's not going to be good. Am I right about that? I mean, that can't be a good sign.
Yeah, and you've seen the Sharks, they just haven't been able to put together 2 good periods in a row, let alone a full game. Against the Carolina Hurricanes, they led after the first period, and then the second period they fall apart. Against the Islanders, they led after the first period, and then they give up 3 goals in the second period. And this second period has continued to be this bugaboo for this team where they don't have enough talent to play a full 60-minute game. And you're continually seeing that as soon as they're challenged or as soon as any adversity hits, this team just falls apart. And it's happened last year, and you're seeing it again this year. Even though there's new guys, new coaching staff, you're seeing the same old mistakes and miscues.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like hearing you describe it that it's not really, a case where this team is lacking in effort. It's more just they're just not good enough, and it sounds like they're not getting any puck luck or anything like that going their way either.
Oh, it's a little bit of both. They shoot themselves in the foot constantly, okay. And then they're just not getting good getting puck luck as well. So it's a little bit of the chicken and egg situation of, is this team just not talented, or are they just doing dumb things and they can't overcome the lack of talent that they have type of thing. So, but with the Rangers, so what makes them so good if we can kind of switch here over here. So,
Yeah.
you look at this team, their power play is actually probably one of the best matchups. Is the Rangers power play versus the Sharks penalty kill. That's like the one thing the Sharks do good. They have yet to give up a penalty kill, power play goal this year. They were the second best penalty kill in the league. So, how do you think these two units match up here?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, man. I mean, I did not know that the Sharks had an elite penalty kill unit. That's interesting to note, though, and they're gonna need to bring it because the Rangers are really firing on all cylinders. And this early in the season, I try not to get too caught up with oh, they've scored on 33% of their power plays because it's so early. I mean, that number is gonna jump all over the place the first few games. But the thing that I love is even on power plays where they don't score, they always look dangerous. And I mean, you've got the top power play unit on the Rangers. Those guys just complement each other so well. You've got Panarin, who's just a phenomenal passer and can really shoot the puck too. Kreider's an amazing net front presence. You've got Fox, kind of quarterbacking the whole thing. He's a Norris winner. Mika ripping one-timers, and Trocheck's come in there and done a nice job too. So I mean, it's just they're always moving around, and it's just crazy how much this Ranger power play unit. I talked about this not too long ago too. I swear, for like 30 years, the Rangers never really had that great of a power play, and to the point where they'd be in a playoff series. And I would they'd have the momentum, they'd be rolling a little bit, and a penalty would happen against the opposition, and I'd be thinking can we just decline this?
Yeah,
we
just
keep
decline.
Going 5-5? Have you been there?
Oh, the Sharks power play this year, 1 goal, 2 shorties given up. So I am right there with you on the please decline these power plays because
yeah, man, it's funny how that can work, but no longer, man. I mean, they're absolutely elite, and yeah, it's been a ton of fun to watch because you really do feel like they're going to score every time. And in fact, in this most recent game against the Ducks, they went 3 for 4 on the power play. And even the one they didn't score, you kind of had a kid line reunion because they play out there on the second unit. And not more than 30 seconds after the power play ran out did they score a goal. So it was the same shift. It just didn't happen on the power play. So yeah, man, that's going to be a big time matchup. And I think if the Sharks are going to have a chance to get this win here, they're going to absolutely need to try to shut down that Ranger power play unit. And better yet, just stay out of the box in general because, that's where the Rangers can really hurt you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, if the Sharks penalty kill can continue, what it's been doing and shutting down these different power plays. They haven't faced a power play like the Rangers. The Islanders is a pretty solid power play. The Canes is a pretty good power play as well. But this Rangers power play unit is, like you said, it is elite. And it's one of the best. I'd put it up there. You have the Rangers, the Avs, some of these power plays where it's almost like watching a different sport the way these guys move, especially when you compare the Sharks' second power play unit, which is a very meat and potatoes, Nick Bonino unit, or kind of please crash the net and hopefully something good happens. But with Quinn, that was the one thing I was hoping Quinn would be able to do, was to fix his power play for the Sharks, which has been very stagnant and boring. And it was a lot of Brent Burns shooting one time, or shooting shots from the point, and everyone try to collect that or tip it in type of thing. And we've seen more movement. We've seen it, and I know it's very early in the season, so hopefully these guys can start kind of getting it together and some more chemistry on this power play, especially with a new system. But again, giving up 2 shorties to the Chicago Blackhawks in one game is not a good sign for your power play. So, yeah.
I would definitely have to agree with that. As far as the goalie matchup, I got to believe it's going to be Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers. I mean, he's the reigning Vezina winner. Halak already got into a game just 2 games ago, so I got to believe it's going to be Igor. Do you think we're getting Reimer or Kakkonen for this game here tonight? And do you have a preference between the two of them?
I mean, Reimer's definitely been the better goalie of the two. Kaapo Kakkonen played really well after the trade deadline when they acquired him last season, but Reimer has definitely been the guy so far this year. And David Quinn says now that we're actually into the grind of the season and have a little bit more normalized schedule, he wants to kind of ride that hot hand, and I think Reimer has earned the benefit right now of being the guy. So especially with the Sharks having a back-to-back this weekend against the Devils and the Flyers, I could see them going Reimer, and then you play Capo against the Devils, and then probably Reimer on Sunday type situation before you fly back home. So I think it's going to be Reimer. I would be surprised if he's not, just because he played really well against the Islanders, and the defense just let him down. Oh, the whole team let him down in front of him. And that's been a common issue so far this season with the goalies, is them just getting hung out to dry, unfortunately. And I have a feeling it's going to be much of the same.
Yeah, we shall see. And we can get to predictions in just a second here. But one more question I had to ask you about the Sharks. And, if there's anything left you want to ask me about the Rangers, have at it. But Erik Karlsson, obviously, he's still capable of going out there and doing some good things. But the contract is just crazy. I mean, $11.5 million a season. And he's there for, I think, 5 more years, including this one. So, I mean, but what do you even do? Do you just kind of keep your fingers crossed that he can live up to that? Is there any way to offload that contract? I mean, just any thoughts on that whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Grier is basically told, this is what happened with Brent Burns was if with all these guys, if you want to move, I will be more than happy to facilitate a trade. And that's what happened with Brent Burns. I mean, granted, between the three big defensive contracts of Burns, Karlsson, and Vlasic, his was the most, appetizing as he could, or appealing, I guess, where he could still provide at a very high level. And that $8 million, the Sharks end up eating like 3.5 million of it to move him to the Canes. But with Erik Karlsson, I mean, you'd have to be throwing major assets at a team, and especially with there's so many just cap crunch teams right now. We're seeing so many teams having to play, 20 guys and stuff like that to try to finagle the caps. That way they have a little bit of breathing room. So I think for now, at least until the cap, I think, we're supposed to see a jump here in the next couple of years. But I think you just got to kind of hold your breath and hope that he can, last more than 60 games in a season, which is something he just hasn't been able to do with the Sharks. So, and there's nights where he just looks electric, and then there's some nights where it's just not the same guy. So, hopefully now with Brent Burns gone, he can kind of have that full load of the offensive share and can kind of see more of the Erik Karlsson of old. But yeah, it's a lot of hold your breath with him.
Yeah. It's interesting because, there are ways to, dump contracts that you don't want to hang on to. The Rangers did something like that with Patrick Nemeth this offseason. He was, just frankly not any good for the Rangers this past year. And they gave him to the Coyotes along with 2 second-round draft picks. So they pretty much just bribed them to take him off of their hands. But, I mean, Karlsson's obviously a far better player than Nemeth, but he's also making a lot more. Nemeth's making $2.5 million for this season and next season. Karlsson's making $11.5 million. So it's tough because, if you're the Sharks, you can't really afford to, give away draft picks.
No, especially right now. Yeah. I mean, they're leading the tank for Connor Bedard right now. It's
right.
You don't want to. This team's not going to be competing for a couple of years, so it's better just to kind of work your way through some of these ugly contracts, like your Vlasics and your Erik Karlssons, and Logan Couture's contract is going to get ugly here pretty quickly as well, especially with his decline in play. So it's better just to kind of take your medicine with it. You're gonna see some relief with cap here in a couple of years. I think it's supposed to jump 4 million next year, and then the hope is that we start to see some more growth in the cap. But yeah, the cap friendly page is not a nice page for Sharks fans right now.
Yeah, it's really not, man. Cap friendly is a way of life for me over here. I'm constantly looking at all these contracts and okay, what can you do here and how do you fit this guy in and
cap friendly and take a thon. Those are the two for me right now.
How about it, man? How about it? Yeah, man, it's crazy. And I got my fingers crossed as much as anybody that because I saw those reports too that the cap could end up going up about $4 million next season. I mean, the Rangers are going to have some tough decisions, but that'll give them some breathing room and they might be able to work some magic and stay just under the cap, if it does go up. So we shall see there. Yeah.
All right, but, let's guess. How does this? I'll let you go first as the home team. How does this game end?
So I mean, I've been, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, there have been a couple of defensive lapses by the Rangers this year, and I think the game against the Ducks, they beat them 6-4. It's a classic case of a team playing just as well as they need to instead of as well as they can, which is kind of what the Rangers did that night. Mm-hmm. I feel like, they probably, even though they won, Gallant, he's going to stay on these guys and he's going to make sure that they're, bringing it every night and putting forth an honest effort. I think you're going to see a pretty complete game from this Ranger team. And I think they take this one, 4-1, 5-1. I'll say 4-1. I mean, the Sharks, they're struggling right now. I am a little bit wary about it, though, just because, at a certain point, whether you're the Sharks or whatever team it might be, if you're a team that's struggling, your pride's on the line. These guys are still professional athletes. They do have some proud veterans on that team, too. Maybe they do play hard for David Quinn, trying to get him this win in this building here. So, I am a little bit wary of it for that reason, but I do think the Rangers will put forth a strong effort and win this one 4-1. How about you? Any final score or anything like that?
I got 6-2 Rangers. I think there's like it's just a complete beatdown. But I will say we'll get our first Timo time of the year. That is my one prediction. Is I keep predicting Timo Meier's going to score because I just want to watch Timo Meier score. But yeah, I think it's a complete beatdown, and the Sharks leave New York with more questions and answers again. So
I will throw out that I think Chris Kreider gets a goal in this one, and I realize that's not he scored 52 goals last year. It's not the boldest prediction ever, but I swear he's been robbed by opposing goalies more than the rest of the Rangers combined this season. So I think he's just due to get one. I think you'll see Chris Kreider put one in this game.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty for the Sharks, but at least we get to see the Sharks awesome away jerseys, so I'm excited about that. So
that'll be fun.
Yes, John, where can the people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at jchick17. You can also find the show on Twitter at LO_NY_Rangers. And yeah, we're available on any audio platform, whatever you're listening to this on. We're available on YouTube, the whole 9 yards. So yeah, we're pretty easy to find. You type in Locked On New York Rangers and it'll come up for you. And how about you, JD? Where can the Ranger fans find you?
You can find me on Twitter at MyFryhole. The show is on all social media, Locked On Sharks, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. My dog is trying to get in. You can also listen to Locked On Sharks wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, subscribe on YouTube as well. Until then, bye, friends.
See ya.